Could it be that right now, the reason why things have not changed or moved is because you're waiting for somebody else to do what you should be doing? You're waiting for someone else to have the courage to actually be about the business of what they have learned and what they've been exposed to. Could it be you that starts the mentorship program for those youth that you run with and come to know in your neighborhood? Could it be you that actually gets involved in your mosque or synagogue or in your church to actually help people or engage in teaching people about your faith? Could it actually be that you get involved in restoring a community center in your community? Could it actually be that you're the young person that helps older people in your community by picking up trash on your street and different things like that? Like, it could be you that actually doing it. You're waiting for somebody else to be the answer, but the reality is that nobody else is going to do it unless you do it. Hi, everybody. Lee Scott here. Thank you for watching and are listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee, where we want to help you unleash your capacity and level of leadership. I'm so excited that you are here for the season premiere of Leading with Lee. We are now in season 4 of Leading, and it's so exciting for you to be a part of this new chapter in Leading with Lee's story. If you have not done it yet, go and subscribe to Leading with Lee on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. And if you want us to find more information about me and what I'm doing, go to www.leascott.com. I'm so excited that you are here today. We are in a new year, and I'm super, super pumped about the things that are going to be happening this season of Leading with Lee, because I'm going to be talking about a lot across the season, a particular subject that I've been thinking about for a few years, which is this idea, and I'm going to share my topic today. It is called Lead from Where You Are. And I'm super excited to share about this over the next few months and even bring on individuals who are actually doing this, because I truly believe that all of us can be impactful in the world around us. And so today I'm going to talk about this subject of leading from where you are and how you and I can make a difference in our world and really start this year. Obviously, we've been a few weeks into January already, but we can continuously lay the groundwork for what we want to see and what we want to accomplish in 2023. So before I get really deep into the subject, I want to share my definition of leadership. I think it's important to define things in order to understand where we're going or how to build forward. So I want to give you my definition. I believe that leadership is seeing something that has not happened yet and taking people, organizations, and personal processes in that direction. I believe that leadership is seeing something that has not happened yet and taking people, personal processes, and organizations in that direction. I got 4 points today, and I want to unpack these 4 points. And so I'm just going to give them to you real quickly so you kind of know what we're going to be talking about. Number 1, we're going to be talking about every person has a capacity and level of leadership. Number 2, we're going to talk about leadership isn't for the few, it's for all. Number 3, leadership requires courage and a belief in one's ability, be steadfast in mission. And lastly, oversaturation doesn't necessarily produce success. Creating demand does. So let's start with the first part of this conversation. This is something that's fundamental, and I just shared it in our tagline for this season, and actually something that I fundamentally believe is that, number 1, every person has a capacity and level of leadership. John Maxwell actually defines this idea of leadership as influence. He says that leadership is just simply influencing people to do a particular thing. And when we look at this idea of capacity and level, we have to realize that all of us can operate in this gifting. And when we think about capacity is a powerful thing, because capacity is defined as the maximum amount that something can contain. For instance, you see this water bottle that I'm holding in my hand. This water bottle, if you're watching the video right now, you can see that this water bottle has a capacity. It can hold liquids up until a certain point, And that's where it caps out because it has a capacity of, according to this, zero point 0.9 fluid ounces or 16.9 fluid ounces rather. And we all know that objects, that containers, things have capacity. You in your body, in your mind, you have a capacity. But the interesting thing about capacity for us as humans is that we can increase our capacity. You may have started out at the beginning of the year lifting only 20 pounds when you first started working out. But a year from now, you might be able to lift 120 pounds. What? Because why? Because you increased your capacity. And this is interesting because I think many of us have to not sell ourselves short and actually see that we can improve our quality of life or improve ourselves when we actually are willing to do the work of growing. And I hope this year that you'll take that in mind and keep that in the forefront of your mind, that you can grow, that you can do something significant in the world, and that you can function in a new way. And so, how can we grow in our capacity? You might be asking yourself, Lee, what is a way that we can grow our capacity? Well, a great question, because number one, a great way you can grow your capacity is by reading. Reading is a great way to grow in your capacity. Getting information, searching out information. One thing that I do a lot is I read books, is I listen to podcasts, I listen to books, I listen to information. Why? Because that is increasing my ability, that is increasing my capacity to understand and see the world in a new way and actually expose me to new information. I truly believe this, and I said this in the first lead that I ever did, is that exposure is the key to success for any individual, because I believe exposure has the power of empowerment. Because the more you know, the more you're able to navigate in the world in a new way. And I think one of the things that is important for you and I as we come into this new season or this new year of 2023, it should be lost on us that we need to increase our capacity. We need to increase our ability to do the things that we're doing and actually operate in a new and profound way, because we know that our capacity has been expanded. There's another aspect of this idea of capacity and level, which is level. I believe that every person has a level of impact. Your capacity can be increased, but you have to understand the level at which you are. And I think you can rise in level. We understand that in any company or organization, you can start at a particular level, and if you stay long enough or get more opportunities over time, you can go from level to level. I've told you my story many, many times of when I worked in the financial world. I worked for a credit union, and throughout the credit union, you started out as a bank teller, and then the next level in that organization was either becoming a member services specialist, or you could become what they called a credit union advisor or a certified credit union advisor. And then you could go up to be an assistant manager, depending on the branch, or become a manager, or even become a VP, or take on some supervisor role in that company. Why? Because they had different levels within that organization. And we understand that level means that a position on a real or imaginary scale of amount, quantity, extent, or quality. Like I said, we can see how that ladder, that moving up, that social mobility is a thing that we see in our culture and our society. And I think all of us have the ability to increase. All of us have the ability to get better at something. And if we want to be impactful in the world, we got to recognize that we got to be able to get better. You got to be able to do the work of increasing yourself or getting to know more about yourself so that the world can experience a new level with you. Now, after doing leading for now my fourth year now, I'm recognizing that I should have increased. If you go back and look at episodes from the first season, you should be able to see that I have matriculated and changed over time. Obviously, if you have been paying any attention, you would notice that how leading looks has changed over time. That the first season looked one particular way, and the second season looked a particular way, and last season looked a particular way, and now this season is going to look a particular way. Why? Because I am increasing in knowledge and understanding, and I'm increasing in my capacity and level of leadership. One of the things that I think is going to help you as we get throughout this year is that you need to see yourself as so valuable and see yourself having the ability to move forward. If it's just one step of you moving forward in your career, moving forward in your life, moving forward in your relationships, moving forward in your friendships, that is a win because you are taking a step forward. And the important thing is that is a part of your development. It's going from one place to the next place. Even this year, I know this is a vital and critical time in my life where I'm going to become a new number. All of us, as we get older in life, we get a new number. We get a year older, a gray hair older, a weight difference, a height difference. And you see over the course of your life, if you look at yourself as your baby photos, you look the same, but you have aged or changed over time, right? Right? Because you're now at another level or another dimension of the same thing. And one thing that is important for you in your leadership is that you're going to another dimension, you're going to another space. And in order for you to leave from where you are, you got to recognize that you have something that you can develop and something that you can grow in to get better and more efficient and effective at. Number two, my second point is leadership isn't for the few, it is for all. If you've been listening to Leading with Lee for any length of period of time, you probably would understand that I truly believe that everybody can make a difference in the world. No matter what your occupation or job is or what your way of life is, I think that the person that's listening or watching this right now, you can make a difference in your world. You may not be able to walk into the same rooms that I'm able to walk in, or I may not be able to walk in the same rooms that you're able to walk in. No matter your gender, no matter your age, no matter your background, no matter who you are, you have the ability to be impactful in any space. Because I truly believe that leadership has always been in you. You just never knew that you had it. A lot of times we don't recognize that it's so close. And I've used this analogy so many times on here about babies. Babies, when they want something, when they need something, even at the earliest parts of your life, instinctively, you know how to move people to get what you want. When a baby is hungry or a baby wants to be picked up, a baby cries or whines or makes a noise because they are trying to get your attention as it relates to what they want. That is, as Maxwell said, is influence. It is seeing something or having the capacity to want something and causing someone to respond to what is happening with you. There was this interesting story that I read about a situation that happened in 1964. There's a book written by, excuse me, there's a book written by Malcolm Gladwell. He wrote this book called Tipping Point. And in this book, he shares the story of this woman named Kitty Genovese. That in 1964, she was actually killed in literally, she was chased about 30 minutes in a community, particularly in New York City. And she was stabbed 3 times in this situation. And this woman sadly died from being stabbed on her street. But the interesting thing about this story was that 38 people saw it happen. 38 people saw this situation happen, and none of them responded in the situation. Nobody called the police. And they watched this woman die. And people were wondering at the time, why were there no phone calls made? Why somebody didn't run outside and stop? Why did nobody shout? Why did nobody try to let them in her house? Why did all these people see this situation and watch this woman die? There were 2 psychologists named John Darley and Bib Laitan who did some research, and they interviewed these individuals concerning this situation. And they dubbed this response as the bystander problem. And basically, the bystander problem and the premise of the bystander problem is that when there's a lot of people, we unconsciously assume that the next person will do it. And then they found that if it's just one individual, you're more willing to step up to the plate and do something. You're more willing to actually go out of your way to stop a situation. But they found that when there's more people, people assume that other people are going to step up to the plate. Here's what's interesting about this story is that Gladwell shares in Tipping Point is that it denotes the problem in our society and culture as a whole, is that we are waiting for everyone else to step up to the plate and do something that actually we should be doing. Could it be that right now, the reason why things have not changed or moved is because you're waiting for somebody else to do what you should be doing? You're waiting for someone else to have the courage to actually be about the business of what they have learned and what they've been exposed to? Could it be you that starts the mentorship program for those youth that you run with and come to know in your neighborhood? Could it be you that actually gets involved in your mosque or synagogue or in your church to actually help people or engage in teaching people about your faith? Could it actually be that you get involved in the restoring a community center in your community? Could it actually be that you're the young person that helps older people in your community by picking up trash on your street and different things like that? Like, it could be you that actually doing it. You're waiting for somebody else to be the answer, but the reality is that nobody else is going to do it unless you do it. Don't allow the bystander problem to be the perpetual thing that we deal with consistently. One of the things that I want to put in your mind here in 2023 is that we cannot afford you to not step up to the plate. Now, we're in the third year of this decade, and I understand the first 2 years for most people was really tough. I had some difficulties happen in my own life over the first 2 years of the decade. There were things that were happening in my life. There were situations that was happening in my life that I thought was going to go one way and it went another way. And all these things were happening around me. And I could have sat there and allowed myself to say, you know what? I guess I won't do it. I guess somebody else will step up to the plate. I guess somebody else will have the courage to do this thing or share about what I feel and share about what I think. But nobody was going to do it. I had to figure it out for myself. In 2018 and 2019, when I was coming up with the idea of Leading with Lee, I recognized at some point that nobody was going to open the door for me. Nobody was going to make things happen. I had to have the courage to do something. Whether people watched it, whether people subscribed, whether people listened to my podcast, whether people were willing to take the time out to create material and write and do all those things or leave reviews or anything like. I didn't know that. What I had to know is that this was something that I believed that I was here to do. That I could have just been waiting. Yeah, somebody should talk about leadership. Somebody should talk about how people can make a difference in their society. Somebody should talk about the capacity and level of leadership. I don't know if it should be me. I think it should be somebody else. I could have done that. And you would have been sitting there not worried, probably wouldn't be worried or thinking about whether or not is Lee going to do it? No, you wouldn't be thinking that. You're just going with your life. But I'm able to make impact because I did not allow myself to be a bystander in my own story. Could it be that you are being a bystander in your own dream or your own vision that could be transforming the world right now? But you're waiting for people to give you permission to be authentic and be empowered to do what you need to do. You have to get in your mind that you got to lead from where you are right now. That nobody's going to make an excuse for you anymore. You got to do it. Listen, there are still people in the parts of the world that are dealing with so much turmoil and so much pain and so much difficulty because of the crises that we are experiencing, whether it be health crises, whether it be social unrest, whether it be a cultural unrest. Even as I'm talking right now, there are things that have been happening around the world. There's wars happening around the world. There's democracies that are on edge around the world, that there are societies that are literally crumbling. But there takes people having courage to say, you know what? I'm going to do what I can do in my space. I'm not trying to go change the world. I'm going to change my world. I'm going to do something that matters in my space, in my city, in my community, in my town, in my family. Maybe it's just that you need to impact your family. Maybe it's just that you need to impact your spouse or your partner or your children or the person you are friends with. Maybe that's the thing you need to do. But you got to recognize that you have to be about the business of not being a bystander, but recognizing that leadership is for you. And I'm just going to take a moment right here and pause, and we'll be right back after these messages. Hi, everybody. Lee here, and I want to give some information to you. Do you need someone to host an event or come and speak at your event? You can now book yours truly. Book me for your event by visiting www.leeascott.com. I am so excited to connect with you and do work with you. Much love, and let's get started. And we are back. I'm so glad that you are stuck around because we are sharing today about the overarching goal of this season of Leading with Lee, where I'm going to talk a lot about you leading for where you are. Even the guests that you'll see this season are people that are making a difference in the communities that they are in. And I'm so excited for you to hear from them and be impacted by their stories. So let's continue to talk about this idea of leading for where you are, because this is my third point, and I think I think it will really resonate with you. And I've kind of been touching at it throughout this talk, is that leadership requires courage and a belief in one's ability, being steadfast in mission. Once again, I'm going to say it again. Leadership requires courage and an ability, and a belief in one's ability. It's about you being steadfast in your mission. You know, one thing that I think we have to think about, and we're seeing a lot of this happen in a lot of communities around the world, and even in my hometown here of Jackson, Mississippi, there's a lot of this happening, and there's a lot of this happening in my state, is that we forget that certain places were not those places at one point in time, right? We forget that Silicon Valley wasn't always a tech hub. We forget that Wall Street wasn't always the financial capital of America and the world. We forget that Atlanta and Los Angeles weren't always cultural and art centers. They had to be developed into those places. Somebody had to see an opportunity and say, hey, we're gonna start this thing here. We're going to have the courage to create something in a space where nobody sees it yet, where nobody has the aptitude for this thing. We're just going to do it here because there's a recognition that there's a possibility of something happening. A lot of times I think in life, we set our expectations low because we can't see the possibility. There's a need for people to recognize what is possible. One of the great Americans that we talk about all the time, and that we have most universally know who he is, Walt Disney. Walt Disney saw swampland in Florida. Literally, he saw the Everglades. He took parts of the Everglades. It was literally nothing but a swamp. And he saw one of the largest, most impactful parks in the world being on that space. And he bought all this acreage, and he said, I'm going to build a resort. I'm going to build an amusement park here because I'm seeing something that people don't see. And most people probably at the time were like, Walt, what are you doing? Why would you try to build an amusement park? Why would you need to build an amusement park in Florida with that weather, with that unique space? Why would you want to build it there? Not knowing that this man's vision for building the most magical place in the world actually provided millions of families with a place to vacation to, with a place to go and celebrate and enjoy and love each other and do incredible things together. Why? Because this one man had the courage and belief in his ability to be steadfast. If I'm not mistaken, it took probably around a decade for that park to be built, and took some years for things to get approved and all these things to happen in order for this man's vision to come to pass. I'm what I'm trying to get in your mind today is that what if you have the capacity or actually the ability to be the starter or something? See, let me tell you something that I'm finding to be a real thing. And I'm getting to my fourth point, but being a founder is hard because a lot of times founders are dealing with skepticism. Founders, people who start things, often are dealing with individuals who don't see what they see. I'm saying this because this is a reality and a truth. And I want to encourage somebody because you don't need everybody to agree with you to start something. Because it's not about them starting it. It's actually about you having the courage to move forward in what you want to do. Because I'm telling you without a shadow of doubt in my heart, they will come in the right time. They'll come in the right season. It may not be that they need to start with you. And even some people that start with you won't always be with you. But you have to know without a shadow of a doubt in your mind that what you are doing is worth doing. It's so important that you understand that. It's so important that you keep that in the forefront of your mind when you're trying to build something, that I see something that people don't see yet. And I'm not going to wait for their approval to do it. I'm going to do it because I know that it's possible. I know that there's some ability here to do that. Like I said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start something crazy or wild. There are plenty of examples of something that's similar to what you probably want to do. Somebody probably has had a variation of an idea. Somebody has probably considered what you thought about, but you have to have the courage to do it for yourself. For yourself. Here in my city, here in Jackson, Mississippi, there's some things that are happening in my city right now that people are having some courage. People are leading from where they are. They're not waiting for somebody to give them the go ahead to do it. They're not waiting or making excuses about, well, we don't have support from these people. We don't have the finances for this, or we don't have the resources in that regard. They're saying, no, no, no. We're going to do it because we believe that this thing needs to change and we can be the answer to the problem. Because this leads us to my final point. I want to drill this down in your mind. I really want to get this in your mind because I think this is so important. Oversaturation does not necessarily produce success. Creating demand does. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. Oversaturation doesn't necessarily produce success. Creating demand does. Let's be very honest and clear about something. People migrate all the time. That is a part of the human DNA. Most people in our world, until the industrial era of the early 20th century, most people were nomadic. If you go back centuries, plenty of centuries, especially BC time, most people were nomadic. They had no set place for home. They moved around a lot. They were tribal in nature. They had settlements. They had treaties and agreements with other tribes and different kinds of people. And it was really driven by this idea of, hey, we are moving where resources are. And that's something inherent in individuals. And we're still seeing that now. And people move now because of other reasons. It may be opportunity, it may be war, it may be crime or safety. This is something that transcends culture. It literally transcends every society. People are migrating. But let me tell you something that's very true, because I'm seeing it happen in my city. And this is not a criticism, but this is just an observation of things that are happening here in Jackson. Moving away does, as I said, does not guarantee you having success, because everybody wants to go where the money is. But could you be missing out on an opportunity to make the money? Great example of this, and we know this to be true. Bill Gates recognized something about personal computers that get slept on. He realized there were already computers out there. He knew there was already computers. Like IBM, Intel were actually doing pretty okay. But he recognized something. He said, I'm not going to invest in just hardware. Let's create a software company. Most of us have used Microsoft Word at some point in our lives. Even Apple products have Microsoft Word. Even other brands of computers have Microsoft Office rather, because the software transcended beyond one space. Nobody was doing it until he decided to do it. I'm reading this book right now. It's called How to Lead. It's written by this guy named David Rubenstein, and he actually talks to Bill Gates about this. Bill Gates saw some things, and he recognized, hey, I probably should move a little bit in this way. I probably should take a great deal of time to do something that's unusual, right? And I'm probably going to talk about more about that book too at some point in this season. But Gates understood that nobody else was doing this particular thing, and this might be the future of this thing. This might be the right answer in this way. So he created something that was needed, having a space to store information. Sometimes you always can't have paper. If you don't have an archival system, they needed a cloud. Like the fact that Apple created the cloud. I mean, just genius idea. Google Drive, like being able to store information in a safe space where no matter what thing you're on, you can always access the information. You can transfer information. Do you know how powerful and profound that is? People have the ingenuity to recognize, as Gates did, Gates started that revolution. They recognize that, you know what? We need to do something that's different in this space. And Gates is a billionaire because of it. Could you actually be settling for millions when you could be making billions? Because you don't want to stay put. You don't want to create demand. Like it's basic economics. It's literally basic economics. One of my very good friends said something to me that has stuck with me, and I'm gonna end with this. He said something I thought was super profound. He said, I am a communication specialist. I live here in Mississippi. If I would move to New York, there are probably 10,000 me's, because they're probably, honestly, there's a bunch of people that can do what I do. The supply is high, but the demand is low because they have options. But the reason why I'm staying in Mississippi is because I recognize there's not a lot of communication specialists. So now he has contracts with a bunch of big entities in our state, not only statewide contracts, but local contracts, all these different things, because he recognized I have to create a space for demand. I have to be in a place where demand is high, because that's where I will prosper. Could you be running away from an opportunity that's actually in front of you because it's hard, because you have to work a little bit more, because you have to push a little bit more? And listen, understand what I'm saying. I'm not against people moving. Trust me, I lived in another state for 7.5 years. I came back on and off at certain points in my life, but for the most part, spent most of my 20s in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But Tulsa was not always the booming place that it is. It had to become that. There's a lot of new money there. Why? Because somebody dug in their hooves, dug in their shoes, and said, we're going to build here. I want to be around people that will say, you know what? I know you see a desert, but I see an opportunity. I know you see something that doesn't work, but I see an opportunity. I'm going to dig in my heels and build here because I recognize that if I build here in the long run, it'll work out for me. It'll work out in my favor. It'll work out because I believe that I can be an answer to a problem. I hope that you'll be with me throughout this season because trust me, I'm going to talk a lot about leading for where you are and how you and I cannot abdicate responsibility, how you and I can make a difference today, not tomorrow. And we can't worry about yesterday, but today we can do something that matters. I'll see you next time here on Leading with Lee, and we are in season 4. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. If you want to get more information and connect with me, visit me at www.leeascott.com or follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. So thank you for watching, much love, and let's get started.